2007 was my first World Cup of any kind. I missed out on an under 14 World Cup where I was the highest run getter. I missed out on the under 19 World Cup where I was the highest run getter in India. I missed out on the 2007 50 over World Cup where I still believe was probably the darkest phase of my career, where I thought that I was about to give up because I thought that I absolutely deserved to be part of that World Cup team which went to West Indies. And then when most of these seniors decided not to go for the T20 World Cup, the inaugural T20 World Cup which was happening in South Africa, then the selectors had picked a young team. And I remember the first game got washed out against, I think it was Scotland. The second game was against Pakistan, which was my World Cup kind of a debut. Any kid growing up, first time who had picked up his bat wanted to play a World Cup of any kind, that also for his country. So got a duck in that game. So imagine, I still remember walking back to the dressing room. It was happening at Kingsmead, Durban. Walking back after scoring a duck, I said, this journey cannot start like this. And I'm sure it will not end like this. So the second game was against New Zealand and Johannesburg Wanderers. And I knew that it could have been, a lot of people have asked me this question, which was the game, which was the turning point or probably the make or break, or you were under the extreme kind of pressure. And I've said that the game against New Zealand, which was the second game, where I got a duck against Pakistan, my second game against New Zealand. And I remember if I had not scored runs in that game, probably I would have been dropped after that game. So I was leaving my room and I promised myself that day that irrespective of what happens today, when I come back in my room after the game, I will play this game on my terms. Good, bad, ugly, whether I score, whether I don't score, I will not come back regretting anything. Because a lot of time as a sportsman, and I have to clear this, that a sportsman's life is a very different life and their mindsets are very, very different, because you're literally living on the edge. Imagine a batsman who's worked for years and years, his entire life is dependent on one particular delivery. There is no second opportunity. You play a loose shot, there is no looking back. You have to either wait for the entire game and for the next opportunity that might arrive, that might not even arrive. So that is called living on the absolute edge, where your entire career is dependent on one particular delivery. So I promised during that game, and I got an 18 or a 19 ball 50, I think 20 ball 50, and we lost that game. From there on, everything turned. And the World Cup final, which you've spoken about, was against Pakistan. I started my World Cup debut against Pakistan, where I got a duck. World Cup final against Pakistan, and Sehwag wasn't playing, he got injured. Yusuf opened with me. And I remember shutting down everything. We went to the game, and I was very clear about one thing, that till the time I'm there, I think India is going to be pretty much safe. And that is the belief I always had, because I've said that many times, that if you don't have that belief, might as well you should not be picked to play for the country, because you're not only playing for your country, you're representing 140 crore Indians. If you do not have the belief to represent 140 crore Indians, you have no right to be sitting in that dressing room. So that was something which was always there till the last day of my career, till the last day, whether I played for my club, state, country, franchise, that I have the responsibility. When I wear that jersey, I have a responsibility of representing the state, the city, the club, and more importantly, the country.
One question I want to ask, because when you were saying about that duck that you got out to, and then you go to play that match, what do you, when you're at the striker's end, at that moment, does that duck come in your mind, do you think that the other side?
It's a very valid question. In fact, not a lot of people have actually asked me this question, and I'll be absolutely lying if I say it doesn't, because I'm a human as well. And if you've started this competition, your first World Cup with a duck, obviously it's going to be there at the back of your mind, that what if I fail? But what happens is that you have to live in that moment. All you need to do is focus on that particular delivery. And more importantly, I remember we were chasing around 180, 190 against New Zealand. They had a very good team at that time, very good bowling attack. So when I was actually walking into bat, and I actually again reminded myself what I had promised when I was leaving my room, that I am not going to regret anything. If I want to hit the first ball out of the ground, I will hit it. I'm not going to play this game on any other term on any other person's term. My term will decide what I do, whether I do good, bad, or ugly. I know my entire career is on stake, irrespective. I don't want to have any guilt going back in my room, because even if I don't score runs, at least I'll be able to sleep in peace, because this is what I had decided to do. Sometimes what happens is you start playing for the gallery, you start thinking about what if I fail, what if I don't score runs, what's going to happen. Those things can happen because I'm a human being as well. Every sportsman is a human being. But the most important thing, as I just mentioned it to you, is that when you go back in your room, you've got no regrets, and that is where you can actually sleep and live in peace.
The dynamics of playing against Pakistan, it's tremendous pressure on any kid. I mean, when I say kid, I mean any youngster. More so when you're making a debut. And tell me, how did it keep changing as a youngster when you started your career and then slowly further, like right up till the final?
See, I'll tell you another thing. I think as a sportsman, if you particularly ask any of the sportsmen, do they prepare differently when they play against Pakistan? Absolutely not. Because ultimately, the contest is not Pakistan. The contest is between bat and ball. The contest remains the same whether someone is bowling with the yellow jersey on or whether with the green jersey on. Yes, there's a lot of other external pressures, and there will always be. Whether at that time there was not a lot of social media, fortunately, but there was a lot of media pressure, there was a lot of fan pressure and all that stuff. So my first World Cup game was against Pakistan. My first World Cup final was against Pakistan. I remember I played a very, very high profile and a high pressure game in 2011 semi-final, which was in Mohali, was against Pakistan, where both the prime ministers of both the countries were there as well. That was probably the most high profile game which I have actually played.
Do you know at that time that they're sitting in the stands?
Yes, they came and shook hands with us after the national
before,
anthem.
when you're on the ground? Yeah,
absolutely. Because I remember when we finished off our national anthems, both the prime ministers shook hands with both the teams. So they were there, and then we knew that obviously the city was completely sealed. No one was allowed to enter the city after 5 o'clock in the morning. Air spaces were shut. Everything was like one kind of
fortress.
It was like a fortress where, and you know that how media hypes and how when you're playing a World Cup at home, that whatever happens, you can't lose this game.
It's not just a game.
Yeah, and more importantly, when people turn around and say this, it doesn't matter whether you go on to win the World Cup or not. You cannot lose. But this is unfair. This is very, very unfair. Honestly, I can share this.
But life is not fair, Gautam.
I know life is not fair. But मैं आपको ये कहना चाहता हूँ कि winning against Pakistan is important. Winning against any other side is important.
True.
But winning the World Cup is even more important. No one remembers whether, आज आप मुझे बताओ, how many people remember that what had happened on 14th October this year? No one remembers. Everyone remembers that Australia won the World Cup.
Yes.
That's the truth. People don't accept that. That's their problem, not mine. The reality is, Pakistan se jeeto, Pakistan is a stepping stone towards winning the World Cup. But for us as a sportsman, as a nation, I think people sitting in that dressing room, it doesn't matter whether we win against Pakistan or not. All that matters is that we have to go on to win the World Cup, because that is going to create or give a lot of happy memories to the nation.
वो तो ठीक है, but he's not answered the question. What went through your head when you batting and you came in after our two openers had gone down?
What went through my head?
Yeah, you're in the final, big match.
One thing in 2011 that went through my head was, I remember obviously one good thing that has happened, which was not a good thing. See, it was a blessing in disguise for me that by the time I had not even padded up, I was not even ready, Sehwag got out and he took a referral. So I got a little bit of 1 or 2 minutes. By the time that referral decision had happened, I got time to get ready, and by the time I realized, I was actually facing Lasith Malinga.
So you were padding up while the referral was going on?
Yes.
Wow.
And that's a good thing for me, not a good thing for the team. You don't want to lose an opener so early on. So sometimes you are not even thinking about the occasion, because when you're waiting for your turn and it's a World Cup final of what if I fail. So by the time I had any thought in my mind, I was facing Lasith Malinga, so everything got shut. But when Sachin got out, I remember one thing that came in my mind was that, and this question has been asked a lot of time and I've answered this, that till the time I'm there, India's winning. That is the belief I always had.